You just paid $8 for a coffee. The screen flips around. 3 buttons, 20%, 25, 30. The barista is watching. You have about 4 seconds, and in those 4 seconds, you're taking part in one of the strangest rituals in the history of money. Americans hand over more than $45 billion a year in tips, more than the entire GDP of Iceland, voluntarily, for service they've already received. That's not generosity at scale. That's a system. So, why do we tip? Ask anyone and you'll get the same confident answer. To reward good service. It's obvious. It's fair. It's the whole point of the system. Except that, according to 50 years of research, it's mostly wrong. Michael Lynn, a professor at Cornell University, has spent his career studying tipping, and his data keeps finding the same uncomfortable thing. The size of a tip has almost nothing to do with the quality of the service. Tips go up when the sun is out, when the server draws a smiley face on the check, when she briefly touches the customer's shoulder. Writing "Thank you" on the bill raises tips. Wearing a flower in your hair raises tips. Good weather raises tips. Same coffee, same table, same service, different coin. In study after study, service quality explains only a tiny slice of why people tip what they tip. The rest is something else entirely. Because we don't really tip to reward. We tip because not tipping feels unbearable. Guilt, social pressure, the fear of that 4-second stare. You've felt it, that tiny spike of panic when the screen turns and a stranger waits. Which raises the real question: who builds a system where millions of people pay extra out of fear? The answer is a 300-year story, with a villain almost nobody talks about. And it starts in the last place you'd expect, with aristocrats. In 17th century England, staying at a wealthy estate came with a bill nobody printed. On the way out, guests were expected to press small payments, called vail, into the hands of the host's servants. A coin for the footman, a coin for the maid, a coin for whoever carried your trunk down the stairs. Money flowing downward, from the powdered wig to the open palm. It made masters feel generous, and it kept servants' wages conveniently low, because why pay a full wage when your guests will cover the difference? Remember that trick. It comes back. By the way, you may have heard that the word tip stands for "to insure promptitude" from signs in old London coffeehouses. Great story. Also a myth. Language historians have traced tip to street slang that existed long before any coffeehouse sign. It simply meant to hand over. The acronym was invented afterward because it sounds better than the truth. And the truth is that tipping spread because it flattered people. After the American Civil War, newly rich Americans toured Europe, watched lords casually dropping coins into servants' palms, and thought, that is what wealth looks like. They brought the habit home like a souvenir. Tipping arrived in America, not as economics, but as an imported status symbol. And here's what almost nobody remembers. America hated it. Newspapers called tipping un-American, a bribe, an aristocratic disease, an insult to a country that had just fought its way out of masters and servants. In 1904, an anti-tipping society formed in Georgia, and 100,000 traveling salesmen pledged to never tip again. Writers called it the worst habit America had ever imported, the exact thing the country had left Europe to escape. Then it got serious. Starting with Washington, in 1909, state after state, Mississippi, Arkansas, Iowa, made tipping illegal. Actually illegal. For a few strange years, leaving a tip in parts of the United States could get you fined. Meanwhile, Europe, the continent that invented tipping, was quietly walking away from it. Through the 20th century, European restaurants folded service into the bill. Service comprise. Service included. The tip shrank into loose change, a roundup, a courtesy. So, follow this. The place that created tipping killed it. And the country that banned tipping turned it into a $45 billion institution. By 1926, every one of those anti-tipping laws was gone. Why? Because someone was making money, a lot of it, and it wasn't the waiters. After the Civil War, American restaurants and railroad companies hired thousands of newly freed black workers, and many employers paid them close to nothing. The Pullman Company, famous for its luxury sleeping cars, became the textbook case. Porters worked brutal hours while the company expected passengers' tips to be the wage. Some porters even paid for their own uniforms and shoe polish out of those tips. Tipping didn't survive in America because customers loved it. It survived because employers loved it. It let them quietly move the payroll onto you, and that logic got written into law when America created the federal minimum wage in 1938. Tipped workers were left out entirely. In 1966, they finally got their own minimum, a lower one. Today, the federal tipped minimum wage is $2.13 an hour, $2.13. That number has not moved since 1991. On paper, employers must top up the difference if tips fall short. In practice, the tip carries the paycheck. So in much of America, a tip isn't a bonus on top of a wage. The tip is the wage, which brings us back to that screen. Those three buttons aren't random. Behavioral scientists call the middle one a default, and defaults win because tapping a suggested number is always easier than doing math while a stranger waits. The suggested numbers themselves have crept upward for decades, from 10% to 15 to 20 and beyond. Researchers call it tip creep. Everyone else calls it tipflation. And it's why machines with no humans attached now ask you for a tip, and why some part of you still feels guilty pressing no. There's even a name for what the button removes. Neuroscientists found that paying money activates brain regions linked to physical pain. Handing over cash literally hurts. A tap on a screen. Painless. Which is exactly the point. Even the tip jar was engineered, seated with a few bills before opening, and every customer's brain reads the same message. Everyone else is tipping, and your brain believes it. None of this is about service. It's about 300 years of momentum, aimed at your thumb. And the barista, she didn't design any of it. The software company did. So, why do we tip? Because a 17th century lord wanted to feel generous. Because a railroad company didn't want to pay wages. Because a screen knows that 4 seconds of social pressure beats a lifetime of logic. Next time the screen flips around, you won't just see 3 buttons. You'll see 3 centuries. And the barista isn't really watching you. History is. Oh, and if you think tipping is irrational, wait until you see what they did with diamonds.